Okay, then you can go ahead and kick it off, and I'll take it from there.
All right. Just want to say good evening to everyone and welcome everyone to the Brunswick County Schools Redistricting Project Phase 2. This is our public information session number 1, and there'll be a series of public information sessions as we go along. As Mr. Cropper did mention, I'm Jerry Oates. I'm the superintendent of Brunswick County Schools, and I am glad to be able to be a part of this process and also encourage as much public input to this process as we can. If you are familiar with redistricting, our Board of Education authorized that we complete our redistricting project in 2 phases. The first phase of which was completed last year in December because we opened up the new Town Creek Middle School, and we're now beginning the second phase of this process. And we have used Cropper GIS in the first phase, and we're continuing to use Cropper GIS for this phase as well. So what I will do at this time is turn this over to Matthew Cropper, who will go through the presentation and provide us with much information that will be helpful as we go through this process for redistricting in phase 2. Mr. Cropper.
Thank you, Dr. Oates, and thank you all for coming and participating in this public information session. A few things that I wanted to touch some just pointers about the Zoom call, the Zoom webinar before I get into the presentation. You'll notice that on your panel as attendees, there is a Q&A section that's available. That Q&A section allows you to type in questions, and as we go through the presentation, we will look at those questions and we will answer questions most likely at the end of the presentation. And so any question that you have, feel free to type those in the Q&A, and we would be happy to answer questions after the presentation is complete. This is also being recorded and live streamed, and we will be posting a link of this presentation as well on the district's webpage, so that they can so that people who weren't able to participate or follow or come attend this webinar can catch up and see what was discussed at this meeting. So let's get into it. So the objectives for tonight's meeting are to give you some background on the upcoming redistricting process. This is the second phase of redistricting that Brunswick County is going through. The first phase involved the northern area of the district and the county to account for a Town Creek Middle School opening. But the objectives for this presentation are to give you an introduction and background and objectives for the second phase. We're going to review the redistricting criteria, and then we're going to talk about some of the roles and responsibilities of stakeholders as for all the different people who play a role in this process, and all the way up to the public. Talk a little about the timeline, a little bit of background on some of the information and material that we have put together in preparation for this effort, and then talk a little bit about how you as members of the public can participate. And so let's go into the first section, which basically is a little bit about us. And we are Cropper GIS Consulting. We are K-12 planners, and we do this kind of work all over the United States. We've done work for districts of 3,000 to over 200,000 students all over the United States. As Dr. Oates said, we have worked with Brunswick County in the past, and most recently worked on their phase 1 redistricting for the northern part of the county. And this is just our type of expertise. We specialize in redistricting plans. We do demographic studies, and we help work with communities and members of the public. And we also help with site feasibility and facility planning. But for this effort and for this particular project with Brunswick County, our focus is on redistricting. I am Matthew Cropper. I have about 20 years of experience in doing this kind of work, and me and my staff will be working through this with the district and facilitating this process using our expertise and experience in doing this kind of work with school districts all over the United States. So let's talk a little bit about the background and some of our objectives. As I mentioned, phase 1 of the redistricting process ended just recently in this past year. with the establishment of a zone for the new Town Creek Middle School. That work was primarily in impacted areas in the northern part of the county, Town Creek Middle School, and those communities north of that, in Belleville and Lincoln, in that region up in of the county. The second phase is really intended to take a comprehensive look at the rest of the district and see what adjustments need to be made to help balance building utilization of schools, as well as try to make feeder patterns as efficient as possible. So we're really looking at the second phase, most likely not having as much of an impact as the first phase, because that first phase was building a zone around a new building. So a lot of students were moved as part of that. This second phase is really looking at seeing where are there imbalances in utilization, where there may be some inefficiencies in a small percentage of students feeding from elementary to a middle school. Say if there's a small, the 10% or 8% of a student population going to one middle and 92% are going to the other middle school from an elementary. That's something that we're going to evaluate, try to see if we can't get a better balance and efficiency in the feeder patterns. As students go from elementary to middle, they can go on to the next level with familiar faces and things like that. So our objectives for this second phase effort are to evaluate zones in the remainder of the district and make changes if necessary to better align feeder patterns and balance building utilization. So we're not going to be looking at moving every student in the county in this effort. I really think that we're looking at being efficient through the second phase and making adjustments with the focus on impacting as few students as possible while still accomplishing our objectives. We do have a set of criteria that we follow as we work through the redistricting effort. And these are basically some general guidelines and rules for us to follow as we start evaluating options and putting a series of options together. And they are to the greatest extent, keep students at a neighborhood school. So try to keep students as close to their home as possible in working through this redistricting process. And also look at the number of students in the building. I know that some buildings have greater capacities than others, but the district has established a parameter to the greatest extent possible. Keep maximum students number for high schools at 1,400, middle schools at 750, and elementary schools at 600. And that's just a good process to try to have a balance of the number of students in each building and to make sure that the buildings are equitable in terms of how many kids are there and how many seats are available at the schools. And finally, try to keep an average bus route between 60 and 75 minutes. And so we'll have transportation staff from the district working with us and evaluating options and giving us input as it relates to the impact on transportation with any consideration that may be made in a boundary option. So this is a table that shows you the stakeholders. And so we have broken down the stakeholders into different components and different parts and different roles of the different stakeholders. And you could see we have the consultant, we have what we call an internal planning team, the general public, there's the superintendent and the school board. And I'm just going to go through each of these and kind of give a little bit of a background and orientation and overview on each person's role or each stakeholder's role. So the consultant is Cropper GIS Consulting. Like I said, we will be managing this process and facilitating everything as it relates to development of maps and statistics, putting together materials and presentations such as this, providing links to the district and so that they have information that they can share with you as members of the public. And we'll be facilitating all of the work with all of the different stakeholders through this process, all the way down to presenting to the school board. Once the process is near completion and we get to the level of presenting to the school board, we will be providing a recommendation to the superintendent and or school board on a recommended plan based off of our the analysis and the process that we're about to embark on. We will be working with an internal planning team. Like I mentioned, we have talked with the district and put together a group of people that's comprised of district administrators, central office staff, transportation, people who manage the elements of student assignment and special programs, transportation, central office, anybody who needs to be around the table as we start evaluating options. They will be part of this internal planning team. I will be working with them, and my staff will be working with this internal planning team to start evaluating options, and we'll start putting together maps and drafts that we can look at and get response and feedback from the planning team. The focus really is for the planning, for this effort with the planning team, is to develop a series of options that we can take to the public and share with you and get some input from you at that point. So we'll probably, when we get to the public engagement session and we start sharing maps, which we're not sharing any maps tonight, we will be probably bringing forth a couple of maps for you to look at and give us feedback on. But like I said, we're just starting this process. We don't have any maps created, and we're just getting into the process of coordinating with the internal planning team and getting some things on the schedule so we can really start looking at maps and data. The general public is a very important part of this process. The general public will be informed through the website. So the district is managing a web page for redistricting for phase 2 that will have a lot of key information on it, information such as the feedback form that you can go to provide input. We'll have an online map there. I think that's already posted up there. Copies of the presentations and things like that we've been posting to the public, and then materials related to maps and things like that when they're ready to be shared with the public. So that's the website's a very good place for you to follow the process. And like I said, there's a feedback form on that website where any member of the public can go in and type in any comment that they want as it relates to the redistricting process. As it sits now, you can feel free to provide any comments to us. And when maps start coming out, you can certainly give us input on the maps. And we will be tracking all of your feedback and studying the input that you provide and seeing if we can react to your input, if your input helps bring us closer to adhering to our objectives and criteria. You may say, oh, this zone option is splitting this neighborhood down a residential street. And we're working really hard to avoid that. But if there's something that's unintended that's happening with this, or you may provide a suggestion of moving one area instead of another to help balance utilization and to help bring kids closer to their home, that types of input are things that we can that we will react to, respond to, and collect from you, and that we're really looking for from you as the process matures. The superintendent is really working more with the internal planning team and monitoring progress. The superintendent is not necessarily involved in every internal planning team meeting. It's more of a high level, working at more of a high level. The superintendent helps to update the school board on progress that's being made through the course of the study, and just checking in with the internal planning team, seeing how the progress is going, and using that information and input to help be that liaison with the school board and help and keep the school board informed as the process continues. The school board is in charge of assigning the charge for this effort and giving us our responsibilities and the objectives and helping to get everything in place for this effort. They're advising staff about the process and regarding policy related decisions. So there are certain things that are really up to the school board that are above the level of even administration, and sometimes things such as policy decisions, things that require school board action and a school board vote on, are things certainly that will be coming from the school board. And ultimately, the school board is in charge of voting and approving on a redistricting plan. So we are working right now with all the other stakeholders to build the materials, do our research, evaluate options, share those with the public, and get input from the public And then ultimately the school board will be taking all of that information and all the research that has been done through the course of the study and make a knowledgeable decision and a vote on a redistricting plan. That plan is expected to occur in March of next year, so March of 2021. And I will share a timeline with you here. So here you can see the timeline for this process. You could see that we have begun working on collecting data and information. We've been putting that information together and assimilating data. You'll see that there's an internal options development with the administration that spans from October through February. And that's the work that we'll be doing with staff in developing options, modifying options. The real focus of the effort is getting to these other public information sessions and also giving you the ability to give us public comment at Board of Education meetings. So you can see the green rows in here are the different public information sessions that we have scheduled. We have one that's occurring right now tonight, which we're giving you an overview and background of the process. And then you'll see on December 1st, we're planning to come back with you, and that at that time we will be sharing some maps. And so we'll give you a background on where we've come, a little orientation again on the criteria and our objectives, and then we're going to get right into some maps and start sharing maps with you. And then we will we'll also enable a Q&A session there so that we can get some questions answered that you may have and work through that. You'll see that there are also some pink rows that show some where the school board has offered extended public comments at their Board of Education meeting. So you have one of those opportunities on January 5th. You also have an extended public comment opportunity on March 2nd, where the board will open the floor for discussion for redistricting, focused on the redistricting, and let the public provide their comments to them. Before you get to that March 2nd one, though, I should mention that there is another public information session in February. So between December and also the January public comment, as we're continuing to work through this, we'll continue to be evaluating options. And in the February meeting, we'll be bringing back another option or two with you to you for feedback and for input. It's possible at that time, as we near close to the recommendation, we may be down to one map, and that may be the map that we're considering, and just focusing on one map and getting input from you at that point. But we just want to make sure that there is plenty of time and plenty of opportunity in this process for the public to provide input. So really that's from October through March is really a good block of time in different key moments where we will be sharing information with you and looking for input from you as members of the public. You'll see on the timeline, we have the school board presentation of the final draft redistricting recommendation, which will be March 23rd. So our recommendation will be made on March 23rd, and it still will be draft at that point. Nothing is final until the school board approves a plan. And so the board is expected to vote on a redistricting plan the following week on March 30th. So I broke down the process pretty well on the table, but we have this also in text. So I'm just going to go through this rather quickly, just talking a little more detail about the different phases. And so, as I showed you, data collection was the very first part of this process and getting information together. We have collected data already for phase 1, but we are still collecting information from the district and getting data, particularly the most recent fall 2020 enrollment. And then also looking at updated capacity information. So collecting data is something that we're leveraging data that we've already collected for phase 1, but we're also supplementing that with new information as it is provided and available. So the second phase of this, once we collect information, is to put this information together into our mapping system. Like I said, we have a lot of data for phase one, from phase one put together, but we are still looking at new updated capacity information from the county, and then also current enrollment for fall 2020 enrollment that we're incorporating into our maps and numbers and studying data with the most recent enrollment. Another thing that we've done that we talked about in phase one, but there are people who are maybe new to this process who didn't see, who weren't following with phase one. I wanted to cover something that we call planning blocks. And as we work through this process, you'll see us referring to what we call planning, what we refer to as planning blocks. These are small building blocks for redistricting. And so think of these as pieces of a puzzle that, that would move together as we start working on redistricting options. So the goal is to try to establish these blocks with the focus on not splitting a neighborhood or a subdivision, if at all possible. And if this area has to move, it moves together. You'll see with each planning block, and you'll see maps, and I'll show you an interactive map here in a second. There is a planning block ID number. So the PB 170 on the center of the screen, that's the planning block 170. And below that, that label tells you how many students live within that planning block. And so in this particular map, I think we're showing the number of elementary students in this zone. And so this shows you the number of students that live within each planning block below the PB ID number. And so, so that's informative for members of the public as you are looking through planning blocks and trying to understand how many students live in an area. And you can also kind of understand if we're moving an area, why did we move this area and maybe not this area? Because one area may have 100 students in it, or another area may have only 20 in it or 10. And so it's work that, it's something that we will be working through. And these planning blocks, based off of your input, if you see that we're cutting the line, or a block cuts off the end of a street, or we're cutting through a residential area, or if a planning block can be further divided to make more opportunity for options, that input, you can provide us that input, and we will listen. And the planning blocks can be modified and updated as we work through the process. Another thing that we've built for this process is an online map. And so you have had an online map since phase one, but this is, we've updated this to really incorporate phase two with a focus on phase two. This is an interactive map that you can go to. The link for this is croppermap.com/BCS. And the link for this is also available on the redistricting page. This is going to be a site that we're going to use to help share options when they are available, and so that you can look at the map and see how options may impact you one way or the other. So what I'm going to do, I'll show you just a little, give you a little preview, demonstration of the online map. So like I said, this is croppermap.com/BCS. And in here, when you get to it, you'll see there's a list of layers, options on the left. And if you hit the arrow next to that, it expands the list so that you have some functionality, you can function and interact with the different layers. You'll see a planning blocks layer. So if you click the plus sign on the planning blocks layer, you can see different things with the planning blocks, and they based on what labels are showing. So if I turn on the top one, this will show me the planning blocks, and this shows me the planning block ID number because I'm showing the label. We can also, if you wanted to see how many kids live in an area, you can turn on the K-5 labels, and it'll tell you each number now represents the number of K through 5th graders that live in each of these planning blocks on the map. As you zoom into the map, you'll see that more detail starts to show up. And so I'm going to turn off the planning blocks for a second and just zoom in. And as you zoom in, you'll start to see more information. Road labels start to show up more. Getting in closer, you'll start to see property lines and parcel lines so that you could see how the actual zone line follows property lines and things like that. And as you get in even closer, more road labels start to show up and things like this. So what I would recommend is, this is something that I use extensively, and us as staff members use this, and planning team uses it, and other communities have really found this to be useful. You can turn on and off different zones. You can turn on the elementary and turn on the middle school zones, see what the middle school zones look like. And you can also do that for the high school zones and see how they differ. And as you zoom in, and as the process matures, we'll start to have options on here. So we'll have, say, elementary draft option 1, option 2, and you'll see under current ES zones, you'll see draft elementary option 1, and you could turn that on and toggle back and forth to the options to see how the area changes and how your area may be impacted. There's also some information here, a cool tool to zoom to subdivisions. So if you'd like, we have a list of subdivisions from the county. So we can go to any particular subdivision here and see, just picking one out of the blue here, Benton Woods. It'll zoom to Benton Woods and show you the boundaries of Benton Woods. And that helps you if you want to know, well, I don't necessarily know on the map where I am, I can zoom to my subdivision and then find out where my subdivision is. And then you can toggle on and off different maps and kind of see how things look in your area. So that zoom to subdivision is useful. And like I said, we will be showing more information in detail on here when it is available. And we hope that you'll find this to be as useful as we do in communicating the details of how specific lines down to the street level are being considered for this process. The third phase of this process is options development. And so that's where, starting now, we're working in options. We haven't shared any options with the district, but we will be starting the conversation here within the next couple of weeks and looking at scenarios that we're starting to model and put together. So, so the options development it's always best to start with a series of baseline options to take to the team, so they can see a couple of different options of how it could look. And then we'll get their feedback and input as it relates to the maps and the statistics and the data. And that can help drive changes, maybe developing additional maps. Transportation may say, well, that really is not an option because of you're creating a much longer transportation commute where this other option may look better. So we'll take that input and that will help drive change to the maps and creating maps as we prepare for the public information session. The fourth phase of this process is really working through that block of time, like I was talking about, with the internal planning team and also the members of the public information sessions and the extended board comment. So we will be working with the internal planning team from October through February to analyze all the data, and then working to develop a series of options that we can share with members of the public, like I said, at those public information sessions. We'll also, when we get to those public information sessions where we have maps, draft options to share, we'll also have another survey formatted for that effort. And there will be another survey that will be deployed at that time to ask you specific questions about the options and help further inform us and all stakeholders about their feelings and thoughts and observations about the different draft options. So again, I have the timeline here that just a recap back on where we are. October 29th, we have a lot of work to be done ahead of this and after this meeting, and we're really looking forward to working with you as members of the public on this effort and starting to get feedback from you and engaging you through this effort. I should note that all of these public information sessions that we have scheduled on this calendar are planned to be virtual. There are no face-to-face meetings for the public information session. The extended public comments at the Board of Education meeting, if the Board of Ed hosts that meeting at a physical location, then that certainly is a possibility to go there to the physical location and provide your comment. But we're working, we've been doing this with other districts, and it's working out very well, doing the remote method here and keeping everybody safe and still keeping the process continuing, even if there may be any unanticipated delays as a result the situation we're in right now with our country and our world with the pandemic. So how can members of the public participate? So I've talked about different ways that you can participate. Mr. Siemens from the district posted in chat of the redistricting webpage. If you go to the school district's homepage, you'll be able to see information on there for redistricting phase 2, and that will take you to a redistricting page that the district is managing. That will have information on there. Like I said, all the information that we're sharing with you that we have ready, we will be posting up here. Recordings of the presentations, maps and data when they're available, and the general feedback form, links to the online map, and anything else that's on here will be available. As we get questions and as questions come in from members of the public, we will start also to develop a frequently asked questions document that we can maintain and update so that we can manage questions that we are seeing, that we commonly see in other processes, and that we'll see that we may see from you as members of the public. So keep an eye on the district webpage, the Brunswick County's redistricting page, and that's bcswan.net/phase2 redistricting. And that can be found just by going to the school district's homepage, and you'll see phase 2 redistricting as a link as you scroll down. Like I said, on there's a feedback form, so that's live now. You can give us any input on that feedback form, and I would encourage you to tell your neighbors and other people who may not be able to participate tonight that they can go watch this recording, which will probably be available by the weekend, and then we will also be monitoring this, like I said, throughout the course of the study. We have the online map that I gave you some input on, and that's also posted up there. And so we really look forward to hearing from you through this process and engaging the public and working with the district. And we're honored as consultants to be working with you guys on this effort, and really looking forward to working with you and coming to a viable and effective solution for Brunswick County. So that is the end of my presentation. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see any questions that are posted in the Q&A. And if there are any questions, I'll give just another minute for people to ask any questions that may exist, that they may want to ask. And is there anything that, while that's where we allow that time to flow for any last second questions, did anybody else from the district want to provide any other comments that for this before we adjourn?
Mr. Cropper, I just wanted to thank you and commend you again, you and your company, for the work that you've done in the past and what we look forward in working with you again now. And I think bringing in the public, of course, is something that we take pride in doing, and we definitely hope that we get a lot of public input to assist us in this process. So again, thank you, and thank you for those that have joined us tonight and those that will watch it in the future.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Oates. And we don't have any questions at this moment. So at this time, I think we'll adjourn the meeting. And thank you all very much. And I hope you all have a great evening. Goodbye.